Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program and we're in chapter 6 of our book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This chapter is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. This is where you learn a very simple teaching, but in its application, it's very profound and it will significantly improve the way that you're able to function in the world through the way that the mind interacts and does various things and makes various decisions. So I'm going to be teaching you this today after we do our meditation. We're going to be starting with our meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you've been joining regularly. As we get going with our meditation, I'll guide you in that meditation, but then ultimately after our meditation, I'm going to share this teaching with you that's going to help you to understand how to implement this very simple teaching that is going to have significant impact into your life in the way that you make day-to-day decisions. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you can take a position either seated, lying, or standing. These are helpful with online learning. There's also a walking position that I teach and have various videos on that as well. If you're sitting on the floor, you might just sit with your legs lightly crossed, or you might be sitting in a chair or something like this. You would like your right hand over left with your thumbs together. That's the way that the Buddha did it. But if you can't do it that way for any reason whatsoever, there's other options as well, like putting your palms on your thighs or your knees or your palms up. Some people like to just rest their hands in their lap. So whatever's comfortable for you. And you might even change it throughout your meditation practice. You might change through various sessions. So as you're meditating, you would like your upper body to be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. And it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to guide you in meditation, and then there'll be a period of time where it'll be quiet, and then we'll come out of the meditation. And I ease into the meditation and out of the meditation with some chanting, but this is just to help ease the mind into meditation. There isn't any mystical or magical things or rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship with the teachings of the Buddha. So I'm going to ease in with the chanting, and if you'd like to join along, you're welcome to do so. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivatemi Savakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso mahakawa arahang sammasambuddho vicacaranang sammuno sakato rokawitu Anuttero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusanang Poto bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. ระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอะภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรภูริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys, whether you're joining for the first time or you've been joining regularly. Today is our group learning program, and we're studying Chapter 6 of our book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. In this chapter, you're learning about the middle way, walking the middle way. In reality, you actually learned the middle way previously in the group learning program, because the middle way is the Eightfold Path. But the middle way is actually another aspect of understanding a certain teaching that will ultimately help you apply this to multiple things in your life and actually be able to use it and utilize it to be able to move the mind to the middle, where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, the enlightened mind. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, he made his way to enlightenment on his own without the help of any teachers or any guides. This is one of the criteria that makes a Buddha, is that they get to enlightenment on their own without the help of any teachers or any guides. But prior to doing that, he was actually studying with some other teachers. And these other teachers were teaching him all kinds of disparaging things, like hanging himself upside down from trees and piercing his body with metal implements, starving himself, laying on beds of nails, things like this. The thought was that if you could cause harm to the physical body and you could transcend that pain with the mind, that then you would be able to get to enlightenment. And ultimately, Siddhartha Gautama, who is the historical Buddha, realized that this doesn't work, that it's not actually helpful, that causing physical pain to the body doesn't actually produce enlightenment. But prior to this, he was actually a prince in a royal family, and he stepped away from that royal family because his father wanted him to be a king, and he wasn't interested in being the king. He was the first in line to inherit the throne, and he saw all this misery and despair in the kingdom, and he decided that he needed needed to figure out how to escape this so that he could help the people in the kingdom. And when he left the palace, he went on this journey to be able to get to enlightenment. And ultimately, through his journey, when he goes off on his own, he gets to the point where he's actually just about to die. He's on his own in the forest. He's left the royal palace. He's left the teachers that were teaching him to disparage his body. And he was pretty much on death's doorstep because he took these aesthetic practices that he was taught all the way as far as he could take it. He was all the way at the point where he was eating just 1 grain of rice per day, and he was basically skin and bones. His bones were protruding, he was meditating, and there was this woman and her daughter that came by, and they saw that he was about to die because he was so emaciated. And they came over to him and they pleaded with him to eat some rice. And he reluctantly accepted this rice and started to eat. And in this moment, he had this realization. After having studied with these other teachers for 2 years and doing all these aesthetic practices that were causing harm to the physical body, he started to eat, and he started to have this realization that he realized that when he was in the royal palace, he was living with all these sensual pleasures. He was indulging in the royal riches of amazing fabrics, entertainment, beautiful women bathing him, great food, and things like this. Everything you can imagine that a royal family could purchase for their son, they had that access to be able to provide this to Siddhartha Gautama. And then when he left the royal palace, he swung all the way over to the other side, where he was disparaging the physical body, even eating just 1 grain of rice per day. And now when he started eating this rice, he started to have this realization that he's been living on 2 opposite sides of the spectrum, and he needed to come to the middle. And this is where he started to understand the middle way, and his practice to get to enlightenment started to really accelerate because he started to understand that he needed to move his mind to the middle. Ultimately, by the time he gets to enlightenment, a total of 6 years, he ends up describing this middle way through talking about a particular instrument. And this instrument that he was talking about was a lute. And here, this is a sitar, which is from India, but we might think about any kind of stringed instrument, whether it's a sitar, a guitar, a violin, or any kind of stringed instrument. That the Buddha used this analogy with the instrument and comparing it to the mind. And he was describing how this stringed instrument, if it's strung really tight and it's wound up really tight, and the string is really tight and you pluck it, the instrument doesn't play beautiful music. It doesn't play the way the instrument was intended to play. But then also, if the instrument is tuned very loose and the string is very loose and you pluck it, it doesn't play beautiful music there either. It doesn't play the way the instrument was intended to play. So he noticed that the mind was essentially doing the same thing, that it was either holding on to things really tightly or that it was real loose and lackadaisical. But it's when you tune this instrument perfectly to the middle that you strum the strings and it plays beautiful music, the way that this instrument was intended to play. And he noticed that the mind was exactly the same way, that when you are holding on to things really tight, it doesn't perform well, that the mind becomes discontent, that there's the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all those other discontent feelings. But when you let go of that, oftentimes the mind swings all the way to the other side, where now the mind's indifferent and lackadaisical and lethargic and dull. And there's not peace and joy there either. So it's only when you fine-tune this mind and you bring it to the middle that you can now experience the peace, the calm, the serenity, the contentedness, and the joy that is the enlightenment mind, the focus, the clarity, the concentration, the deep memory, because you've eliminated the pollutions out of the mind, where the personal, professional relationships are improving, and you get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore. So this mind that you have, it performs very much like a musical instrument. It's a certain way that it was intended to perform and the way that it was intended to function. But if it hasn't been tuned to the right pitch, then it's not going to play beautiful music, just like the instrument. It's not going to perform well. So what I've been teaching you over the last several weeks, this Eightfold Path, this is the middle way. This is what's going to tune the mind and bring it to the middle. Each one of these factors that you learn as part of the path to enlightenment: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It's dialing all these in and tweaking these within your life practice that is going to produce the peace and the joy, because it uproots the pollutions that are in the mind. So just like you have a speaker system, if you had 8 dials, you would tweak these and you would get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. And the same thing is true about the mind. When you tune in the mind with these 8 factors, then the mind performs more and more optimally. So this middle way that the Buddha taught in relationship to the Eightfold Path and how you need to journey to enlightenment, it's can be applied here when we talk about it as the middle way, and that is the middle way, the Eightfold Path. But you can also apply this idea of the middle way and this teaching of the middle way in many different aspects of your life, that it's not just the Eightfold Path. As I mentioned, the Eightfold Path is the middle way, and that is how to train your mind. But you can take this same simple teaching of bringing the mind to the middle, not holding on to things really tight and not having things real loose and lackadaisical, and bringing things to the middle. You can apply this to any number of aspects in your life, whether it's your finances, your maintenance of your house, your social relationships, your work, or any number of things. Let me give you some examples here. Let's say that you were holding on to your friends really tightly, and you were spending an exorbitant amount of time with your friends in social situations. Your mind's holding on here, and you're not spending time to do the other things that you need in life in order to help your life move forward. But also, if you were all the way over here on the other side, where there was just no social interaction whatsoever, and you were just work all the time, or just lackadaisical and just not doing anything at all, your mind's not in the middle. You're going to experience the dullness and the lethargic condition. So it's only when you bring it to the middle, where you balance out your life, you spend some time doing social things, and sometimes you're doing other things that you need to do in order to move your life forward. Or let's take the maintenance of your home, for example. If you have your own home, if you were obsessive about the maintenance of your home and every last little detail, and specifically just holding on to it very, very tightly, and any little number of things that go wrong in your home, you got frustrated and agitated and annoyed, you're not going to experience peace and joy there. But also, if you're over here on the other side, where you never took care of your home, and something breaks or something has a problem and you just could care less, then you're not going to have a dwelling that's going to be there for you to be able to shelter you from the weather. So it's only when you come to the middle where you find the peace and the joy, and the mind can be at ease, where you're not obsessively maintaining your home, but you're also not just lackadaisical, could care less what happens to your home either. You can apply this even to the teachings of the Buddha, as you've been learning here and there that generosity is an important teaching and a mental quality that you need to cultivate, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. Well, if you are able to share with people to a certain degree, and you've found a particular way to share, well, if you were holding on to this and you were maybe sharing excessively, well, you're not going to have the basic needs that you need in order to take care of your own life. But also, if you were on the other side of that, where you never shared, you would be selfish. And the stain of selfishness would affect you because your mind's holding on to things so tightly. So if you share in excess and practice generosity without attending to your own basic needs and necessities, then you're not going to find peace and joy there. But over here on this other side, if you were selfish, you're not going to find peace and joy there either. So you need to come to the middle, even with something like generosity, and ensuring that you're practicing in the middle way. But the interesting thing about this middle way is that it's impermanent, that it fluctuates. Of course, the Eightfold Path is the Eightfold Path is the Eightfold Path, but applying it to these other aspects of your life that I'm talking about, it's going to fluctuate. It's not like this straight path that goes from point A straight to the mountain. Instead, you might start kind of on a certain path, but then it kind of ebbs and flows and changes as things change in your life. So using this same example of generosity, say you have found a certain place where you felt like sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources, that you've gotten to the middle, and you're like, this is great. I'm able to share X amount of time or X amount of dollars, and this feels like the middle to me because I'm able to take care of all the things that I need to take care of, but I'm also sharing on a regular basis. And you found that middle way, and you feel peace and joy when you're practicing generosity in that way. Well, you might have found the middle with that particular aspect of your practice, but then as you go forward in life, things are going to change because of impermanence. You might get laid off of your job, or you might end up needing to study and go away to school, or you might need to attend to your parents. Maybe your parents are getting old and elderly and you need to attend to them, or maybe you have children that are entering into college or university. You're going to need to be able to find the middle on any one particular thing, whether it's your generosity, maintaining your home, your social activity, maintaining the health of your body, maintaining your career and your development in your career, all these different things. You're going to need to find the middle on those, but then they're going to ebb and they're going to flow. As things change, as the variables change in your life, impermanence is happening all the time. You're going to need to be able to change and adjust all these different aspects of your life. But when you find the middle way on any particular aspect of your life, there'll be peace and there'll be joy there. It's almost like the mind takes a breath of fresh air. When you're not practicing the middle way, you're going to notice the stress, the anxiety, the bitterness, the hostility, the shyness, the resentment, the jealousy, all these other discontent feelings are going to be coming into the mind when you're not practicing the middle way, because you're either going to be holding on to something too tight, or you're going to be on that other side where your mind is dull or lethargic. So you're going to need to watch this with your mindfulness or awareness of mind, that your mind might swing back and forth. It's very rare that you're going to let go of something in terms of a craving, desire, attachment, and your mind's going to move right to the middle. This isn't the way it typically happens. When you're letting go of craving, desire, attachments in your mind, the mind will usually swing to the other side, overshooting the middle, and now your mind's more indifferent and dull and lethargic. And you can see that the mind is not in the middle there either. So you need to start moving the mind back towards the middle. But once again, you tend to overshoot that middle and you start moving back into craving. Not as much as you were before, but you start moving back into craving. So you're going to notice that the mind kind of swings like a pendulum like this before it kind of finds the middle. And then when it finds the middle, zoom, there you are. You're right in the middle, and you'll notice that the peace and the joy will be there. It'll almost feel like the mind is taking a breath of fresh air. And then you be observant of that, and you notice where the middle is, and you notice the peace and the joy in the mind. And now as things are changing in your life, now you change as well. And you make these subtle changes in your life based on all the different variables that you have in your life. So this is a very simple teaching that I'm sharing with you, and this is everything that I have to share with you at this point. And I'm going to open up to questions and see what questions you guys have about applying this to your life. Because while this is a very simple teaching, the real impact in the profound nature of this teaching is when you're applying it to your life. So I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to this particular teaching and anything else that you guys would like to talk about, because we've been studying now for a good 2 months, probably like a 2.5 months at this point. And we've been studying a lot of really in-depth teachings. And here in chapter 6, it's kind of just a very simple teaching to help you understand that the Eightfold Path is the middle way, and that you can fine tune your mind just like this instrument to play beautiful music. And you can read the book. It's probably going to take you all of about maybe 10 or 15 minutes to read this particular chapter. It's a very short chapter, one of the shortest chapters in the book. And then next week, we're going to be moving into chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts, a householder's guide to daily practice. This is a much deeper teaching. So you got kind of like a little bit of a respite here where you're learning this very simple teaching. But if you understand it and you can apply it to your life, that's where it's really profound and really impactful. So let me know what questions you guys have, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. You can put that into the comments section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. So we have some questions coming in here on Zoom. Arvind is asking, does the middle way essentially mean everything in moderation, or are these certain things that should just be off limits? So when you say everything in moderation, right away my mind thinks like, does that mean cocaine or heroin or, crystal meth or something like this? Of course, not those things, right? You're not referring to those kinds of things. But what this essentially is the middle way is the Eightfold Path. When you learn and practice the Eightfold Path, this is what will guide you to that peace and joy. But then you can extrapolate this teaching of the middle way and apply it to various parts of your life. And we might call this nowadays, we might call it a balanced lifestyle, right? Because a lot of people talk about this balanced lifestyle, at least they used to. I don't know what people talk about nowadays. But people struggle to find out, what is that? What does that mean? Well, it means is where you're not holding on to things real tight, but you're also not lackadaisical either. So you spend time with your life partner or your children, or you spend time with your parents. But if you did this excessively, then you're not attending to the basic needs that you have or that you have at work or something like this. But also, if you never spend time with your family members, that wouldn't be helpful either. So you need to find that middle way, and it's going to ebb and flow as things change in your life. So what this middle way is in terms of the extrapolation that I'm guiding you to understand is to cultivate and create this balanced lifestyle for yourself on all these different factors, whether it's the maintenance of your home, whether it's the development of your career, whether it's your social situation, whether it's your finances, or any number of things, even practicing the teachings of the Buddha. If you were to be reading excessively, let's just say you were reading 5 hours a day and you were meditating 3 hours a day, this is excessive and you're maybe craving to get to enlightenment. But also, if you're over here on the other side, where you just could care less about how you interact with people and how you train your mind and whether you even train it or not, and you could just care less and you're not doing anything for inner growth and development, that's not going to produce peace and joy either. So you need to come to the middle, even with pursuing the path to enlightenment. You need to pursue it as a goal, as an objective or an interest, and gradually work towards it, understanding that you're going to maybe set a goal in life, and you're going to set maybe that you would like to accomplish this in 4 weeks or 8 weeks. And then as you gradually work towards this goal, you might get to the 4-week threshold and realize that you only have about 60% of your goal completed. Whereas if you're pursuing this with an expectation or a want, you'll be sad, you'll be frustrated, you'll be angry. But if you pursue things in life as a true goal, as an objective or interest, when you get to that threshold of 4 weeks and you realize you haven't met your goal, it's like, all right, well, I've done the best that I can do to get to this particular point. So let me see what I can do. Let me extend my timeline. Let me add some more resources. Let me figure out how to actually accomplish this goal and gradually work towards it. Maybe my initial time frame was unrealistic based on all the different impermanence that I experienced over the last 4 weeks. So pursuing the middle way is to understand that things are constantly changing, and you're going to need to find the middle in kind of a balanced life in any one particular aspect of your life, and then pursue those things with a goal, as an objective, as an interest, gradually working towards it, realizing that you're not going to always meet all your goals, and you're going to have to make adjustments to your timeline or other things that you might be having as variables to be able to accomplish this particular goal. Let's see, Brent has a question. How do you personally implement a Brahma Vihara or factor of enlightenment to counteract a swing of the mind? So depending on what your mind's doing, if your mind is practicing the craving, desire, attachment, and that's what you're doing, you're holding on, and the mind's holding on to things really tight, this is where you would like to practice breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity to train your mind to let go. And now as you're doing that, and if you've been doing that regularly like I've been guiding you to, it's going to potentially swing to the other side. And this is where the dullness and the lethargic condition can start to come in, and you can start noticing that. And then you apply the enlightenment factors from the 7 factors of enlightenment. That if you're practicing mindfulness or awareness of mind, now when you notice your mind is dull and lethargic, you start practicing the enlightenment factors to uplift the mind, which is the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, and joy. These are detailed in Volume 1, Chapter 3, where the investigation is you're investigating and examining the teachings of the Buddha. This is the first factor of what you would like to practice when your mind's in that dull, lethargic state, because you're trying to do just the opposite, to counterbalance this dull and lethargic state. In this dull and lethargic state, the mind doesn't want to meditate, doesn't want to come to class, doesn't want to talk to your teacher, doesn't want to read, doesn't want to watch videos or listen to podcasts. It's just like, whatever, right? It's in this dull and lethargic state. It doesn't want to do anything. So you're trying to do just the opposite to counterbalance that and start bringing it to the middle, where you investigate and examine the teachings. Then what you'll notice is as you're learning the teachings, it's starting to provide you the insight and wisdom that you need in order to eradicate this complacency. And now there's this energy that springs up in the mind, this vigor, this ambition, this motivation. And then there's this joy, this unconditioned happiness that springs up in the mind. And I've taught this at different times, and if you have more specific questions on this, you can certainly talk about this and ask me those questions. But these enlightenment factors, you'll need to apply right mindfulness to be aware whether the mind's in this one state or another, and then you'll need to apply right effort in order to arise these qualities in the mind. So that's why it comes back to the Eightfold Path, where that's the core central teaching, because there the Buddha is providing you the tools and techniques that you need to be observant of the mind with mindfulness, and then apply right effort to bring the mind to the middle. So if you ever notice with your mindfulness, the mind's on either side, you can actively move the mind to the middle. And more, it'll get easier and easier to do this. Initially, you don't have much mental discipline, but as you train your mind through all the various meditations and all the other techniques that the Buddha teaches, then you become more disciplined with the mind, and you can actively move it much easier with less effort. And then as you get it to the middle, it will stay there. The analogy that I give to people is I share, like if you had a piece of wood and you had a piece of steel rod and you grinded this steel rod back and forth on the wood, initially the steel rod's going to bounce around quite a bit because there's not a groove there yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth long enough, you're going to create a nice groove in the wood. And when it pops out, you're going to notice that, because you know what it feels like to be in the groove. You're going to notice when the steel rod pops out, and then you'll be able to bring it back. But eventually, if you grind this steel rod back and forth long enough, you'll get such a deep groove there that the mind will never pop out. And that's where the mind is enlightened, that you'll notice that the mind is in the middle and constantly practicing the middle, and it doesn't get distracted. It doesn't move over to one side or the other because it's just in the middle. So when you notice your mind isn't in the middle, that's your mindfulness, noticing that the steel rod is not in the middle, and now you bring it to the middle, and you bring it and you keep it in the middle. And then if it bounces to the other side, you bring it to the middle. So if you're watching TV and you notice your mind's wandering and you're not paying attention to the TV program, you cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're in a business meeting and you notice your mind's wandering, you cut that off and bring it back. And we can use this towards the middle way too. Like say you're noticing that you're expending an excessive amount of time maintaining your house, and you're just being so particular. It's almost like being obsessed with every little aspect of your house. Where you notice the mind doing that, you're like, hold on a second. I haven't been spending time with my children. I haven't been spending time with my life partner. I need to spend some more time with my career and my work. Let me let this go, and it's not going to be the end of the world. Let me bring the mind a bit to the middle, and now let me just maintain the home in the way that needs to be maintained without being obsessive about it. And this is where you can use your mindfulness and this understanding of the middle way. When you look at your life, whenever you see that you're doing anything excessively and the mind's craving or chasing after things, or it's dull or lethargic, then you use that right effort to bring the mind to the middle. And now the more that you stay there in the middle with all these various things, now your mind will just always stay there. But it's going to bounce around quite a bit for many months and even years. But as you go, it'll bounce around less and less. Okay, great questions there, guys. Let me see if we have any questions on YouTube or Facebook. Looks like we have some questions here from Janae, I think is the way you pronounce your name. Janae Joy. When you say the middle way is the Eightfold Path, what do you mean? So the Eightfold Path is the training that is going to fine-tune the mind. So just like that instrument, you reach up to the knob of a guitar and you tune that, and you get all the strings tuned to a particular pitch, and now the guitar is in the perfect tension. And when you strum it, it plays beautiful music the way it's intended to play. So this guitar or any other stringed instrument, the middle way is that all the strings are tuned to the perfect pitch. Well, the Eightfold Path is those little knobs that you're turning in the mind, and it's training the mind to be able to now be at that perfect pitch and optimized. But you need to gradually train it up to that point. So things like, for example, right speech. When we studied right speech last week and in our previous classes, the Buddha teaches about how to eliminate lying, slander, which is like gossip, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. These are all based in craving, desire, attachment. If you're lying, this is because there's certain things that you want, and if you told the truth, you're not going to get what you want. So the mind lies in order to get what it wants. And there's that craving, desire, attachment there. If the mind is having slander or gossip, this is where you're degrading and diminishing other people. And oftentimes the mind thinks that, hey, I want to look good here. And if I put out somebody else's candle, then I will look good. My candle will burn brighter. But in reality, when you put out someone else's candle, it's darker in the room. You would like everybody's candle to be on. So no need to diminish and degrade other people through slander and gossip. Or if you have harsh speech, for example, where you're bitter and harsh and hostile towards others, the mind's not in the middle. There's some craving, there's some desire that is there that the mind is longing, yearning for. Just like with the lying and the slander, the harsh speech comes along with craving. There's some craving that's motivating that bitterness and hostility in the mind. And then the same thing with frivolous speech, that when the mind's just talking idle chatter, just blah, 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 blah. It's not even a conversation anymore. It's just like broadcasting. If you've ever done that, people are just going to tune you out. And that comes from craving, desire, attachment. So if you didn't know these things and you didn't have that wisdom, your mind's craving and it's holding on. It's lying, it's slandering, it's speaking harshly, it's having frivolous speech. There's just craving, 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 craving. The string is tuned too tight. So now the right speech, the Buddha is teaching you how to bring that to the middle, where you eliminate those aspects of your practice. And now you practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where you speak at the right time, what you say is true, you speak gentle, you speak beneficially, and you speak with a mind of loving kindness. This is what I taught as part of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Now, this is fine-tuning the mind. This is like getting out your tuner on your guitar, and you're tweaking the string, and you're plucking the string, and you're looking for the pitch to make sure it's at the right pitch. So the same thing is true, is you got to get out the teachings of the Buddha, look at what he's saying about right speech, or we might think about this as right communication, because we'd like our emails, our text messages, our social media posts, everything to be using this right speech, because these are the natural laws that are going to help you to be able to interact more harmoniously with all beings. But it's also fine-tuning your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, so you're not holding on to things so tightly. And then that's what I say, that when you start letting those things go and you're starting to let cravings go, you might notice the mind swings to the other side where it's more lackadaisical. So the Eightfold Path is going to show you how to tune in your practice with all these individual dials. And then Janae also asked some more questions here. In what ways do people struggle the most to walk the middle way? Well, if we talk about the middle way as the Eightfold Path, where people struggle the most is just getting started with right view. Oftentimes people struggle with being able to see that their mind is causing their own discontentedness. Oftentimes what we do in the unenlightened state is we blame other people. We think that other people are causing us to be angry, or we think other people are causing us to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So what I do is I walk students through the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths, showing you how to learn it, how to reflect on it to independently verify it, and how to practice it, so that now you can see the truth for yourself through independent verification that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. But if a student isn't willing to do that work to be able to see that their mind is causing their own discontentedness, then they will continue to believe that other people are causing them to be angry. And now, as long as you believe other people are causing you to be angry, you're going to either push people away out of your life, you're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards them, or you're going to put your expectations on people and try to control people. So establishing right view is so important in terms of the Eightfold Path and practicing that teaching closely. And then from there, all the others start to just make sense of why it is that the Buddha is teaching all these other teachings. In terms of the simplicity of this teaching of the middle way and applying it to your life, whether it's about your home or your own personal health or your social relationships or your finances, where people struggle with that is they kind of get to the middle on any particular topic, and whether it's your finances or social situation or what have you. And now they hold on to that and they think that that's going to be permanent, and they just kind of locked and loaded as if they're taking a straight beeline towards the mountain. That's why I use that image of the mountain, is that people think that they're just kind of walking straight towards the mountain, when in reality, this path is kind of winding and turning. So whenever you find the middle with any particular aspect of your life, whether it's finances or social situation or whatever, you need to understand impermanence is always there. It's always at play, and it's going to continue to change things in your life. And when that occurs, you need to be observant of that and then just ebb and flow and change as things are changing in your life. And now you can make adjustments and continue to keep your mind tuned to the middle with any one particular topic of finances or maintaining your home or your career development or any other thing. Here's another question from Janae. How does walking the middle way help with focus, concentration, and memory? So if we talk about walking the middle way in terms of the Eightfold Path, it's helping you because it's fine-tuning the mind and it's eliminating the pollutions in the mind. And when you're eliminating those pollutions, that's what's going to bring in the focus, the concentration, and the memory. That oftentimes people think that it's the meditation that's producing these qualities. And there is a certain aspect of the meditation where you're exercising the mind and you're focused on the breath. And when the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and bringing the mind back to the breath. And that is producing certain mental qualities that are wholesome and helpful. But what's really producing the focus, concentration, and memory and all those other benefits is the elimination of craving, desire, attachment. That's what the meditation is doing. The meditation is each time you're moving the mind off the breath, you're letting go and letting go and letting go, and you're training your mind to let go instead of hold on with craving, desire, attachment. So what the middle way in terms of the Eightfold Path is doing for you is it's helping you to be able to let go and not have craving. So around your speech, those examples that I gave you, you can see how by choosing not to lie, not to slander, not to have harsh speech, and not to have frivolous speech, you're letting go of craving, desire, attachment in order to be able to accomplish that. But just always keep in mind that you're not going to be able to learn a teaching from the Buddha, snap your fingers, and instantly implement it. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Sometimes people, when they read a book or they hear a teacher talk in a class, just because they understand it intellectually, they think that maybe they can go out and they can immediately practice it, which you can start practicing it, but you're going to have missteps. You're going to trip over your feet. You're not going to do it perfectly just right after you've read it in a book or right after you've heard it in a class. It's going to take time and effort and energy to gradually train the mind to be able to implement each one of these factors. So if you're tuning a guitar, for example, if this guitar is like wildly out of tune, which is what the unenlightened mind is in the unenlightened state, it's wildly out of tune. If a guitar is wildly out of tune, you've got 6 strings there or 5 strings or however many strings your guitar has. When you put your tuner on the guitar, you're going to need to spend a lot of time fine-tuning that guitar, because as the neck of the guitar comes into more and more and more tension, it's going to throw off the tuning of the other strings. So you're just constantly plucking each individual string and tuning and tuning and tuning and tuning and tuning and going back and refining and refining and refining and refining. So it's the same thing with the Eightfold Path, that you're going to be constantly refining that, which is constantly refining your mind, helping you get rid of craving, desire, attachment. And that's what brings in the focus, the concentration, the clarity, and the deep memory, because you've eliminated the craving, desire, attachment, and the pollution of mind are being uprooted. So now the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind can shine through. The mind's starting to perform optimally, because when you're carrying around craving, desire, attachment, it's like carrying around a burden on your shoulders. And when you're carrying around this burden on your shoulders, you feel weighed down, you feel exhausted, you feel tired. But when you uplift this burden that the mind's carrying around, that's where the focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory comes in. Now, in terms of practicing the middle way with all the other factors, and whether it's your maintenance of your home or your health or your social situation, those other things that I explained how you can extrapolate this teaching into, that's going to help you, because it's going to help you balance your time and your effort and your energy across all the different challenges that you have, all the different responsibilities that you have. So there you're going to feel better, because you're going to know, like, hey, My family is taken care of. My work life is taken care of. My home is taken care of. My clothing is taken care of. You've got all these things well taken care of. And now you just enjoy your life because you've got everything really well worked out. Essentially, what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're developing the ideal life for yourself. But you're doing that through the wisdom of the teachings of the Buddha. So if you feel like your friends have come down to a minimal, and you one time in your life, maybe you had all kinds of friends and all kinds of social interaction, and that's kind of come down to a minimum, and now you're doing all this work within your own mind and doing your own development. That might take several months and several years to do, but then eventually you'll kind of expand back out. This is normal that you might consolidate the things that you're doing and not having so much interaction in the world. And now when you consolidate all these things and you build this ideal life for yourself based on the wisdom of the natural laws, when you expand back out, your life won't collapse on you. If you've ever been through periods of time where you've built up your life, whether it's with a life partner or children or your career, and everything just kind of collapsed on you, this is because you weren't practicing the natural laws. You didn't have the wisdom of the natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught. And then you had to rebuild your life. And that's really challenging to do. So if your life has been consolidated and you find that you're not spending very much time with other people, that just very few people in your life, this is helpful because you can work on your own mind, learn all these teachings, learn the natural laws, and then as you expand back out and you build your life, this ideal life, everything can be at ease, where you've got everything taken care of and you're not struggling and having difficulties, whether it's with your food, your clothing, your home, your work life, your family life, all these different things. You just got them worked out really, really well. So that's how it helps you to have focus and concentration, that your mind is not all over the place trying to haphazardly figure this out and haphazardly figure this out and barely keep your head above water. Sometimes you feel this way when you're drowning in craving, when you're drowning in anger and ignorance and unknowing of true reality. You feel like you can barely keep your head above water because you're barely keeping up with your finances, or you're barely keeping up with your home, or you're barely keeping up with your work, and it can feel like you're drowning. So you can start learning these teachings and put together this ideal life for yourself. And this is where you can be focused and concentrated because you're not worried about your family. You're not worried about your finances. You're not worried about your career because you've got all these things that you're practicing in the middle way. And now everything's at ease. And that's how you'll know that your mind is moving to the middle, because you'll have all these different facets of your life that'll be at ease. Okay, so great questions there. And if you guys have more, you're welcome to put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. So far, I've looked at a few in YouTube and Zoom as well. And it looks like we have another one coming in here on Zoom from Brent. I feel that early on, I experienced a lot of beginner gains. The light attachments were let go of fairly easily, and now the heavy, sticky ones remain. I feel like the progress now is slower and more hard fought, and I'm trying not to expect anything out of my practice, but it's hard. Is this normal? Yes. It's like peeling an onion. When you're peeling an onion, those outer layers come off really easy, right? But when you get into the core of the onion, they're holding on and they're a lot harder, and you keep trying to peel this onion back and peel this onion back, and it's holding on really tight. So by the time you get to the second, third stage of enlightenment, for example, you're going to still have attachments there, but the ones that are still there are the deepest held ones that you've had for so many years, because you were able to get rid of the other ones fairly straightforward. But as you get into that second and third stage of enlightenment, whatever cravings and attachments are still around, they've been around for a long time. I've been sharing with students in the last few days that there was a particular craving that I was working on that took me multiple years to let go of this one particular craving. And it was very challenging to let go of it. And you're going to have those same kind of things. And early on, you can be making all this progress, and you can see all these gains where you see your focus and concentration really pick up because you're letting go of so many individual smaller attachments. But then, like you say, every attachment after that, it's a bit more challenging because they're deeper held, they're deeper in the mind, they're more deeply rooted. But you've potentially seen enough progress in the ones that you have let go of that your dedication kicks in, your confidence kicks in, your determination kicks in, and you stay dedicated to the work, and you just continue to do what you know that led to those improvements and those gains that you've already seen, and you just stay dedicated to doing those things, and you don't give up. And this is what's going to see you through all the way to the end. And not that the path ever really truly ends, but it's going to see you all the way to enlightenment. So yes, early on you can experience lots of gains because everything's so new and all these lighter attachments are fluffing off pretty easily. But then when you get those outer layers off, the inner layers are a lot more challenging to let go of. This is very normal, Brent. Okay, I'm going to check one more time if we have any more questions here. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining for today's class. As I mentioned last week, this is a very short class, just a little bit of information to really help you guys understand what this middle way is. You've already learned this middle way in terms of the Eightfold Path in our previous classes. But here I'm showing you that the middle way is the Eightfold Path, but then you can extrapolate it and apply it to other aspects of your life. And here you've got a little bit of a respite where you can just read a short little chapter. You can build up your meditation practice. You can go back and look at some of the previous chapters, because now next week we're going to move into chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're going to see a lot more teachings that are very significant and very deep and very detailed that are needed in order to build your foundation on your journey to enlightenment. So here there's just a little bit of a respite as you learn about this little simple teaching of the middle way. But like I mentioned, the profound nature of it is in its application, that as you apply it in your day-to-day life, that's where you see the real improvements. So thank you all for joining for today's class. And as you would like to attend future classes, next Sunday, we're going to be in chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts, a householder's guide to daily practice. This Wednesday, we're going to be in the third part of a 4-part series on Buddhist chanting. And any of these classes that you can't attend live, you can always watch the replay on YouTube, on Facebook, or on our podcast. So as you need help, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you guys. You're welcome to send private messages, ask questions in classes. You can post in our Facebook group, and you can even schedule personal guidance through our website, and we'll be able to meet in Zoom together. So have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee Krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.